What's up, guys? Welcome to a bonus episode of the Let's Talk Nerdy podcast, in which we have brought on a special guest, Andy from the Tooning Japanese podcast, to enlighten Dave and I of anime.
If I'm not back in 5 minutes, just wait longer.
You are now tuned in to the Let's Talk Nerdy podcast.
I love it when you talk nerdy to me.
So welcome in, Andy, and go ahead. What I want you to do is kind of introduce yourself and talk about your love of anime, where it started, how long you've been into it, and things like that.
Perfect. My name's Andy. As you mentioned, Tooning Japanese, the podcast we've been doing since 2016, I think, at this point. It's been a while. I got my start with podcasting, actually, before that with Shadow Vein, which was a radio drama horror podcast that I no longer do because it was a lot of work to do and very taxing with editing and working with actors and whatnot. But started Tuning Japanese with my buddy Bill and my buddy Josh originally, and we just decided, let's do a podcast. We'll watch episodes of an anime, and we'll watch the entire series, and we'll just break it down episode by episode, giving our thoughts and reviews. The whole gimmick was my friend Josh was kind of the otaku, I guess you want to call it, the real anime nerd. I watch anime and I like anime, but it's not like my identity. And my friend Bill doesn't really like anime at all. So that was kind of our focus, is like having someone really into it, someone who's like in the middle of the road, and someone who really just doesn't like it and gets to dog on anime constantly. So I started watching anime when I was, probably in middle school, I think is my sort of like real kind of introduction to it. I really got started with Sailor Moon. I'm not ashamed to say that. That was a real formative thing to kind of understand what anime was for me. But also really got into things like Dragon Ball Z and Gundam, and eventually met a friend in high school who was super into anime, and he gave me old. I know how old Adam is. I don't know how old Dave is, but I don't want to I'm an
old man, 37.
Yeah, he's a little bit older than me.
Okay, fair enough. So, there were these things called VHS tapes, Adam, where you used to record stuff
I'm
off
not
TV.
that.
Okay, I'm kidding.
I'm not that young.
That's fair. So he would record VHS tapes from his brother's anime, and I would watch I watched Duel that way. I watched Trigun. I watched Cowboy Bebop. Just a whole bunch of series from the 90s, and just kind of fell even more in love with it. So since then, I just I try to watch what I can, what I think is good. I don't keep up with everything. I don't have time to keep up with everything, but usually the big series I try to watch, and yeah, it's just something to do with our time and record and tell other people about our thoughts.
That's exactly how we kind of got started. I was driving actually to the for the listeners that definitely don't know, Andy was actually my English professor in high school,
Yes.
Which was 12 years ago. And actually, I have a question about that. If you were
go for it.
I don't know if you're gonna remember this, but if you could describe me as a student, and I'm putting you on the spot, was I a good student, a bad student?
Oh, you're a good student.
Oh, was I? Oh,
yeah, I think so.
dang.
I think you're a good student. I don't want to say you're not I don't remember you. I don't remember you as being top student, but you were a good student. You did your work. You were always respectful. You had a good personality, a good sense of humor. So yeah, we got along pretty well. I'd say.
I think so. I brought a lot of banana bread to class, so I think that's kind of what that's probably what won you over.
Yes.
But yeah, so like that. I forgot where I was going with that question.
I got one thing real quick. I just want to talk about, Andy, how you have just transported me back in time to the days of hooking up two VCRs together to record my friend's VHS tape so that I also can have a copy. So thank you for bringing me back into that moment, man.
You're very welcome.
The first edition of pirating movies and video games and stuff like that.
Don't say pirating. Don't say pirating. We're gonna get copyright striked.
We're not condoning that.
No,
don't do that.
Definitely don't do that.
But it was funny. So I think I know where I was going with that. How I got Dave to do the podcast with me, I was actually heading to the high school to play basketball with some former graduates and whatnot. But I was like, Dave, I want to start a podcast. You want to just do it with me? And that's kind of how it started. And so welcome to Let's Talk Nerdy podcast. So with your love of anime and kind of how you got it started, what makes you what are some of your favorite animes?
So I guess if I had to narrow down some of my favorites, I really do love Cowboy Bebop. It might be my favorite anime of all time. It's such a good show. You don't even have to be, I think, a fan of anime to really appreciate it. It's just kind of cool. The characters are really fascinating. It's written really well. It's if you like science fiction with a lot of humor, you will absolutely dig that show. Really love that one. Other ones that kind of come to mind, Trigun's really good. That's one from the 90s that I absolutely adored. The story of a gunman out kind of in the Wild West, but on a different planet sort of setting. And it's really good. And he's the guy with the 60 billion double dollar, that's their currency, bounty on his head. And he's got this legend behind him. He's Vash the Stampede. He destroyed all these cities. But in reality, when you get to know him as a character, he's a complete goofball and goof off, and he's great. He's hilarious. So those are two probably of my favorites. I don't know. Wolf's Rain is another one that not as many people probably know and listen to, but it's a story about a post-apocalyptic Earth where wolves kind of come back to look for like paradise, and it kind of is going to bring about like a full like end of the world if they do. It's a really weird story, very complicated, but another good one too.
These all sound awesome, dude. I feel like I've slept on anime, and like I feel like almost saddened that I have not seen these things that he's talking about.
You've got all the time in the world, man. Just jump in with something, and if you like it, continue it. If you don't. And don't feel like you have to watch those shows where they have been running like One Piece for like, I don't know, 1,000 episodes, because like those are ridiculous. But just pick a small run show and just get a taste for it.
I'm totally down, and I think like honestly, dude, like I have a question. So Adam kind of blew me in a little bit about not being the hugest anime fan, and it's just one of those things. Like I try to explain to people, it's like there's so many things that you can be into, right? And it's like it's hard to just be involved in all of them. So it's not so much that I don't like anime. Like I definitely appreciate like the art style and everything that goes behind it. It's just kind of like one of those things that I missed the boat on, to be honest. So for somebody like me, and I know a lot of our listeners are, might be in the same group, it's like I've never really started with anime. So like for somebody like me who's kind of new to it, like where's a good spot to like jump in? Like if you had to pick a series or two where it's like you should probably get started with this, like where do you think I should go?
Man, I guess it's going to kind of depend upon what you like to watch as far as genres of like movies and TV shows. I really do think that Cowboy Bebop is a great starting point. Again, I don't think it doesn't feel super anime, right?
Yeah.
Like it has some of those tropes, but it's not heavy on like the over the top goofiness and the anime feel. It's a good starter one. Attack on Titan's not a bad one either. If you've ever heard that one, that title before. It's a story about this sort of like, I don't know how to really describe it. There's people who are living within the walls of the city trying to protect themselves from these crazy giants that like roam the land, and they are just frightening. And if they ever break through the walls, like their whole thing is like devouring people.
Oh wow!
And it is a really cool one, I think, to get started if you don't mind violence, because it is very violent.
That sounds right up my alley, dude.
Excellent. You would love that.
Dave is all about the violence. That's like his type of game. So you mentioned like the goofy part of like anime. Is that like all animes? Like every anime has some sort of goofiness or character? So I know you're watching the Irresponsible Captain Taylor. So I actually went and watched a couple episodes of it. And,
all right.
and yeah, and like right away, like the first episode, I was like, this is like very goofy and very funny, especially when he's in the selection process.
When he gets in the suit and then he gets the robot so horny that the robot explodes.
Yeah, exactly. And then he's the spy from the is it the Rogon? Is that who it is?
The Ralgon. The Ralgon. Yes.
Yeah. So now he's the spy. So is that all anime? A lot of anime has the goofy tropes to it, especially. So as I was getting into like getting you on the show, I was like, I'm gonna go watch Dragon Ball again. So I started Dragon Ball, and they have a lot of those same goofy quirks. So is that kind of normal for anime?
I'd say so. I think for a lot of anime. Now, there's definitely like more serious stuff like Attack on Titan, where you're gonna have a lot less of the goofiness to it, and even Cowboy Bebop has its goofy moments too. But yeah, a lot of anime does kind of like predicate itself on this idea of like being silly, over the top. Captain Tyler's an interesting one. That was one who our host Matt, because our friend Josh had to step down, and he's now with us. It's his favorite anime of all time, and it's his pick, and we're going through it. And I can understand, like, it is silly, it's over the top, it's weird, it's goofy. But I think a lot of anime kind of leans on that. We just reviewed the first couple episodes of Black Clover for our Patreon series, and like that one is this. It's like set in a fantasy world, and there's like these two people who like who grew up together. They're like 16 I think now, and like one of them is like this crazy prodigy with magic, and this one is in this world where he doesn't know any magic, and he just is constantly screaming and flailing and freaking out because he can't do magic. And it is very common for anime. It is not in everything, but very common.
I like the goofy parts, especially like I said, watching Master Roshi, and every time he sees a girl and the nosebleed starts, that's the funniest thing. And then the fact that like they have a little 12-year-old Goku naked in front of like a full crowd, it's so funny, and I like that part of anime.
Yeah, that part's really fun. Sometimes it's a little too over the top for me. I do love the example you give of Dragon Ball. It's like, why are they just letting this kid run around naked? Like, what, just put on some pants. Like, what are you doing?
And it's like, it's just normal, like for like the show, and it like, you don't think twice about it as the show starts to go on. But I think it's funny. I like that part of anime.
Yeah, the first anime that we reviewed for our podcast was one called Excel Saga, and it is one of my favorites as well. But if you really have to like really get into anime before you try that one, because it's just making fun of a bunch of other anime and like the genres of anime, and the main character is a screaming crazy woman who just like is constantly getting herself into trouble, and that's that goofiness that like really kind of stands out in anime like that, or Dragon Ball.
God, so is it more like a parody anime? Like you said, they're making fun of it, so they're trying to do it over the top, so people can be like, this is the funniest thing, making fun of, like, it's a genre, but also making fun of a genre.
And it's super self-aware. Like it knows it like oftentimes will like refer to it as a show or a manga and all these things. And I love that humor too. It's great.
I think it's almost necessary, to be honest. And like I said, I'm not the hugest anime fans, but like I have watched, a couple, and I'm almost expecting that. Like I'm almost expecting that like there's gonna be parts that are very brutal and very violent and like that style, but there needs to be that kind of like yin and yang of like comic relief to kind of settle it down a little bit in points too.
Another question about it is, so a lot of like anime, or like what I've noticed in Dragon Ball, is there's like the scenes where they're screaming for like, is that pretty normal? Like screaming for like durations of minutes, or even like it feels like it's episodes of screaming back and forth. Is that pretty common as well?
That's pretty common. It's kind of the meme, right? When it comes to Dragon Ball Z, it's like, this time on Dragon Ball Z, and it's like they're just like, ah, and then it's like next time, and it's like they cut away to like the same thing in the next episode. That's not uncommon for shows like that. I think modern anime, I'm sure we'll get into like the evolution of anime a little bit as we go, but I think modern anime for the most part, and I'm not saying like all of it, but a lot of it has changed in the way that like they are able, I think, in some of more modern examples, to tell more cohesive stories, where like you don't have to like draw it out episode by episode of like Goku and Vegeta just screaming at each other for like 20 minutes. That they can like get to the point and not have to worry about running because the way anime usually is run, and I think it's kind of changing now, but the way it used to, especially in the 90s, is you would put one new episode every week on Japanese TV, and that is taxing, especially because back then it was not CGI, it was all hand-drawn animation. And you would have like all these shortcuts. It's like when you go back and you watch really old anime, things like the Go Lion or Voltron, right? And you actually watch that. Like they use those repeated scenes, just like in Power Rangers, to save money, right? Like you have to do that in order to get through it. And I think now with like CGI and the fact that like there's not as much of a crunch with like streaming services to have to put one out every week on Japanese TV, you get more like cohesive storytelling that doesn't need that sort of like back and forth screaming at all times. Yeah, filler. Yeah.
Really, that's just the fact that things are getting more modernized, and the fact that it's on streaming services, because like they can work all of it at once and then just upload it, rather than like, okay, you have to do this episode this week, next episode you have to do this. And so I feel like that definitely helps a lot with like what you said, making it a little bit easier for the animators and the storyteller, or like the animators in general.
And like you said, that's a really taxing timeline. I don't know if you guys know, but if you go back and look at like old episodes of South Park, so Matt and Trey had to do an episode every single week, and that's part of the reason why the early episodes of South Park look really, really bad. It's just because to be able to put out an episode like that is really, really taxing, and especially doing a hand drawn. I mean, that's why they did it with like the cutouts and stuff like that, with the very cheap blocky animation, and it's just they didn't have the time. So in order to like in order for these studios to put out this episode once a week and still have it hand drawn the way that anime, like in the anime style, is actually super impressive.
With the streaming service, what is the best streaming service for anime? I think I know because I think I just subscribed to it for Dragon Ball, but let's see.
I'm gonna say probably nowadays it's Crunchyroll. Crunchyroll is probably the best place to get anime. I before that I had Funimation, and then Funimation really kind of like decided. I think they were kind of like, I think they were bought, if I remember right, by Crunchyroll, and Crunchyroll kind of like gathered all of their library on top of their own. So Crunchyroll really is the number one place. It's not too expensive either, like surprisingly, compared to other streaming services these days.
Right, that is the one I just subscribed to. So it's good to know I'm in the right place if I want to keep watching anime. I think it's only like $9.99 a month, which if you're gonna, and these shows they can last like a long time. So it's like rather than like one season on Hulu where you're like, okay, what do I watch now? There's like tons that will keep you interested. So
Tons of content, and they do simulcasts where like if it comes out in Japan, like they'll have their own versions with dubs like coming out at the same time, which is amazing that they're able to do that.
That's cool. I have a question about the dubs actually. So you are an avid anime watcher. Do you prefer to watch the dub versions, or do you prefer to watch the true like Japanese versions with the subtitles?
I am an anomaly, and I'm not the best person to ask because I love dubs. I think dubs have a charm to them. I think they're fantastic. We've been lucky enough to talk to a couple of voice actors on our show, American voice actors. We had Dorothy Fawn, who played a role in Trigun, and then we also had Jessica Calvello for our first season. She was the voice of the main character Excel, and just getting a chance to like talk shop with them and just see how much work goes into that. Especially like before in like the 90s and the early 2000s, when the recording process was very different. I just love it. I don't know why. Not to say that all dubs are good. Some dubs suck.
what would be some examples that are just straight like if you're gonna watch it, like don't watch the dub, like watch the subs?
There's the infamous one, and I hope I'm getting the name of this one right. I think it's called Ghost Stories. And that's an infamous one where like they did a dub and it's just like so terrible that like it's the go-to example of like what to not to do, and it's like so bad that it almost is good. You know what I mean? Like it's you watch it just for the pain of it.
That's funny because I'm actually in the same boat as you, dude. I'm like, I know the purists are gonna say you have to watch it in the original language, but like I don't know. It's so hard for me. Like I can watch something where the voices don't match up with the lips and be totally fine. But if I'm constantly having to read subtitles, I get very, very distracted. And then like it's hard for me to like pull myself out of just focusing in on the subtitles to actually see what's happening. It's almost like I'm just kind of reading and just building this picture in my mind. So like yeah, I'm kind of with you, man. Go Dubs. Go Dubs.
I'm on the same boat too. I can't read and look at or watch at the same time. Like it's too fast for me too, especially because like anime has a faster pace to it too. So it's like, okay, what would they just say? I have to rewind a little bit, and like trying to keep up is like I can't do it. So I'm a dub person as well.
It was funny. I actually went to the movie theater one time, and I forget what movie I saw. It was this horror movie, and I sat down, and it was in French. And I was like, the subtitles popped up, and I was like, oh no, I'm in such trouble.
I'm not gonna focus on anything.
I'm not gonna focus on anything.
With like, there's tons of different animes out there. What are some like? I know there's probably different genres and different types of anime. What would be some genres that you think don't get enough attention that may deserve a little bit more attention?
That's a tough question. I don't really know necessarily nowadays if there really is a genre in anime that isn't being supported, because there's so much, like a ridiculous amount of anime coming out now. I think really honestly to answer this question, I would say that like when I talk to people that watch anime, especially like younger, like if my students or whatever, if like anime ever comes up, like they don't seem to know or appreciate anything that isn't like really modern. So I think like honestly, I think it's the older stuff that like gets overlooked anymore. We did have like for example like Trigun, which I mentioned is one of my favorites from the 90s, did get remade recently in Trigun Stampede, which was following closer to the manga than it was like the anime series. But like generally speaking, like a lot of times there's like, I've never heard of that. I'll bring up an anime, like it's one of my favorites. And I'm like, how did you not know this, you youngins, you whippersnappers?
We're getting too up there.
Yeah, that's true.
It's
Just can't connect.
Yeah.
It's not old enough to be cool yet. Give it a couple more years when it's vintage, and then it'll be cool.
That is true.
Yeah,
Exactly. That's how the world works. And then like aren't like baggy jeans are coming back too. A lot of 90s things is coming back. It's like, yeah, we did that like 24 years ago, more than that now at this point. But it's funny to see some of that stuff coming back when I was like, yeah, I knew this when I was like 5 or 4. It's like it was way cooler then. So, but Dave, you got something else?
yeah. So I don't know if you want to talk about this, but I know you said you were drawn to Sailor Moon to kind of get you into it. Yeah. What specifically drew you into that? Like, what was like your initial take of like, wow, this is something that I think I need to check out?
So like for me, it was, first of all, I had seen like Voltron before, right? But I didn't understand that Voltron was an anime originally, because Voltron, and I've just figured this out because I'm rewatching Voltron as like one of my workout shows right now, and I hadn't watched it since I was a kid, and it is terrible. Like, it is choppy. The dub is like just awful, and I'm like, I've never seen the original. It's got to be like there's things I'm seeing, and I'm like, there's no way that like this makes sense. And I watched some episodes of the original. I'm like, holy crap, this show is dark. Why did they choose this one for a children's show? But anyway, that was a non sequitur. Often left field. But like with Sailor Moon, it was like the animation. Like, aside from like some of those other shows I didn't realize were anime, it was like unlike anything I'd ever seen, right? Like these wild, crazy, colorful transformation sequences, these like villain of the week type plots. Everything about it like was just wild and weird and new to me. And I think, to get a little personal, because I don't care, I can talk about it on my podcast anyway too. Like, when I started to dig into it, like I'm queer, and like I, in watching it, realized like, wow, this show is in the 90s. Even though they hit it like in the original dub, like it's really queer. Like it's a very queer show. So like, if you grew up as a child in the 90s, you know that like there was no representation at all. And just even being like, oh wait, those two characters, even though they don't say it, are supposed to be like the same sex and like dating. That's super cool. I didn't even realize that, like media could do that. So it was things like that I think really drew me into it initially. And then obviously like branched out into wanting to figure out more about what anime actually was.
Yeah, Sailor Moon was a thing, dude. I lived through that era of just like, see, you'd be walking down the hallway, and it's like every kid's got that chick on her backpack, and you're just like, this is a phenomenon right now.
It was huge.
It took it by storm, and that's funny that like you were talking about going back and watching the shows, because it's like, I do that all the time. Like, no joke, I went back and watched Power Rangers, and like, dude, I was like, bro, I was the biggest Power Ranger fan, and like I taped the episodes on my VH. I'd set my VCR to record at 5 o'clock. Like, I was the biggest Power Ranger fan, and I went back and I watched it, and I'm like, this is unwatchable. I'm like, this is so bad. I can't watch this.
I will give it credit though, because like it's so brilliant what they did. They took something like just a catalog of these like tokusatsu shows, and they just spliced it up, and they just did like, they didn't have to spend hardly anything on that show, and they made just millions on everything. And it was, I mean, what brilliant marketing, and like how much like we ate it up as kids.
We ate it up, and we still unfortunately eat it up still.
Excellent. I love that.
It molded our minds essentially.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel like just marketing in general back in the 90s, anything that popped up that was like for a kid, you always wanted that. It's like, oh, I want that, even though I'm probably like, I'm not interested, but it looks like a cool toy that it's on a commercial. But I feel like the marketing back then for that kind of stuff was awesome.
They definitely knew the formula for sure.
Yeah, they knew the formula. But now I can't remember the last like TV commercial I've actually seen, aside from like the YouTube ones. Like, nobody watches TV anymore.
Oh, I know. I got YouTube Premium, man. I don't even see those. It's great.
Oh wow, look at you. Yeah,
I know. I got that teacher money,
So you had mentioned like like the show. Which one was it that you said doesn't feel like anime? Was that?
I'm trying to remember what I said.
Cowboy Bebop.
Trigon? No,
Cowboy Bebop.
Cowboy Bebop.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's some shows that like are more popular that are like anime, but they don't feel like anime. For example, I think one that some people are like, that's not anime. Like, I'm a huge Avatar: The Last Airbender fan, and like I'm like, oh yeah, I watched that. They're like, that's not anime. Like, you can't join my conversation. I'm like, is it? Like, so that's a question I have. Is it an anime or?
It's a great question. We've talked about in our show when we talk about things that are like feel like anime but they're not. We call it anime adjacent in our show. So like, when we did like our first episode way back when we started talking about like how we got into anime, some of the things we talked about were like Transformers in the 1980s or GI Joe, and like those shows were not anime, but they felt so much like anime because they came from this toy line of these Japanese toy makers, and so like shows like Avatar, shows like oh man, I'm blanking on. I had an example and it just left my brain.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Be one?
Yu-Gi-Oh! Is an anime actually.
Okay, I watched a lot of that.
Yeah. It's weird show, but it is an anime. Same thing with Pokemon. Pokemon's one of those ones where like people will say like, well, that's not anime. It's like, no, it is anime. Like that is absolutely anime. It's Japanese in origin and like what the biggest like franchise of anything ever. So should come out of Japan. So yeah, I think I like to say anime adjacent when we talk about those because they're obviously influenced, right? Like Avatar is absolutely influenced by anime. There's a lot of cartoons that I think have like pay kind of respects to anime as a genre, as a form.
It's kind of like making it like Western anime, essentially, rather like kind of like they do with Western medicine, Eastern medicine. It's like Western anime in a way.
I was gonna say, spoiler alert, Adam. I could tell by Andy's facial expressions that he did not think the Last Airbender was anime.
I do like the Last Airbender though. I think Avatar's fantastic. I just actually watched that not that long ago. It was one of those things where like it came out later. I was an adult, but I did go back and watch it a few years ago, and it's fantastic. Like what a show. Like
I watched the whole thing in a week during COVID. I was like,
Holy cow.
I'm going back. I'm going back, and so I watched it. What are your thoughts on it becoming live action?
I'm always iffy when it comes to live action on anything cartoon. It's hit or miss. Anime's done this too, right? Like, so we saw like Netflix did a bunch of ones like Death Note, which I haven't watched that one yet, but apparently it was really good. Bleach was live action. I saw that one. That was pretty good. And they did the Cowboy Bebop one that got a lot of backlash from fans, but I thought it was really well done. It wasn't exactly the anime, but I don't want to watch the anime. If I want to watch the anime, I'll watch the anime. I want to see something else with those characters. So, yeah.
One Piece is another example, right? Isn't that one on Netflix now? I think they just released that recently.
Yeah, that's not a show that I'm like super into, but I might give the live action one because there's not 2,000 episodes or something. So
I'm actually super curious. We were talking about anime and what you called anime adjacent. What are like so for somebody who's not really super, like in the know, what are like the defining characteristics of anime where you're like, yes, this is anime, or like, no, this needs to go in anime adjacent?
That's a good question. I think one of the things that like really makes anime is just a lot of the cultural stuff that ties into it, right? Now, like not all anime does it, but I think a lot of anime really leans heavily into Japanese culture. Whether that's the cuisine, whether that's like the backdrops, whether that's like specifically the setting, some of the character choices, the character archetypes. I think that's a big part that like really distinguishes it. It gives it the form of like where it comes from in that way. I think also just the general like just the silliness as we alluded to earlier, and then the action, the over the top action that I think you can only really get in a lot of times in anime that sometimes even dwarfs what we see in like American or other animation.
I think one of the things is like, so I always kind of say like this. We were talking about like the over the topness of it, and like the like the aggressive yelling and stuff like that. I think it's like a very strong delivery of the performance, and it's something that you see a lot in like Broadway, where they're almost like really kind of projecting, like some people would even say it's like almost like Broadway is overacting, right? Like they're overselling it. And I think it's like you can kind of see that in anime where they're just giving very, very strong deliveries of their performances. And I think it's one of the things that I personally like about it that makes it really unique to like any other type of animation style.
No, for sure. And what's really cool about it too is like, you can have that, but you could also have something like Your Name that came out several years ago, which is like this much more quiet, introspective film about like, and it seems silly on its surface because like the premise is these two young adults swap bodies. It's one male, one female, but like it's not like weird and like pervy and like the things like you might think of from anime. It's like really introspective, and like they walk in each other's shoes, and then like they keep transferring back and they try to find each other. And there's a really like heartfelt ending that I won't spoil because you should watch Your Name. It's fantastic. It was something I watched not too long ago for the first time, and I was blown away and had a few tears at the end. But like you can have those quieter animes that are just as impactful too.
Yeah, that sounds really, really cool.
Kind of backwards question, but how do you guys pick what or like shows you guys are gonna like review on your show?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we're on season 9 right now, and the way that we do it is we just every new season, the next person gets their pick. So it was my suggestion to start the podcast. So I was like, we're gonna pick a weird anime that I want to do, which is Excel Saga, which probably in retrospect is the worst one to start with because you have to kind of know about anime really to like get a lot of the jokes. I should have picked Cowboy Bebop or something like real like big appeal. So that's number one. If you're gonna start a podcast, start with something people care about. So like we just kind of pick like what are the things that either A, we absolutely love and we want to revisit and we want to like watch again with a more critical eye, and really get into deep conversations about, or in the case of like my friend Bill, who's less into anime, like I remember seeing that on Toonami once and I didn't hate it, so I'm gonna pick that one, and maybe I won't hate it talking about it again.
And has he become more of a fan as the show has gone on?
I think so, and I mean, don't blow our secret here, but like he puts on a little bit of a front sometimes, but generally speaking, like yeah, he's gotten into it more. It's interesting to kind of see his take. He's always very laid back about like if his comment at the end of an episode is I didn't hate it, then we're like, whoa, this is like one of the greatest episodes of the series right here. Like, this is great. This is fantastic.
Every podcast needs their bad guy that just craps on everything, right, Adam?
Yeah, Dave. I wonder who that is. Dave has got his fair share of backlash from some of our comments, which has but it's fun. It makes it funny, but
I'm a strong critic, guys. I'm a strong critic. Yeah.
You got to have those differing voices.
Yeah, if I like it, you could take that to the bank. It's good.
Yeah.
One of the things that I love about anime is like I'm a huge like animation junkie. I really appreciate like the actual work that goes into animation. And I think that it's a very, very unique style. Is there anything that you kind of look at when you're looking for a good anime that's not so much like right in your face, but you notice like kind of minute details and like how it was drawn or how it's displayed or anything like that, where you're like, wow, they really took like a lot more time into this than other, maybe other series have?
That's a good question. One of the things I look into when I look at an anime is I look at art style. There's definitely like if something is unique, if it doesn't feel cookie cutter, it doesn't feel like it's reused from something else that's unique, whether it's like character design, whether that's background drawings and artwork, whether that's like, a very unique style. A lot of them use like CGI now, but like if it doesn't feel too CGI-ish, right? And it feels like, for me, like if it feels almost old school in the way that they approach it, I really like that as well. I think those are things. And then the music is something I absolutely pay attention to. I love a good soundtrack, and I think when it comes to anime, there are a lot of anime that really focus on the music alongside of the storytelling, and the music enhances it in a lot of ways. So like I look for those things. I look for character design. I look for music. I look for a relatable protagonist that's not too cookie cutter like the rest of the sort of like I'm a young male that's gonna like find my power and whatever like. That's fine and dandy, but like, what else do you got?
Okay, so who is a character that has like made that impact on you? Who is like the most? If you could pick your most well-developed character, who would be on the top of your list?
Oh boy, wow. I would probably either say Vash the Stampede from Trigun, because he has this mystique about him, and when you first get to know him, he breaks that sort of like mystique. He's not badass. He's a bumbling fool. But then when you go further on to the series and you pull back those layers, there's another person underneath that who puts on a front to be goofy, but he's like has issues with depression and has issues with like feeling secluded, and then you like peel back that even more, and you find that like he's putting on all these layers of front so people don't get close to him. And you know, it all stems from like his relationship with his twin brother and all these things, and it's really fascinating. I would say that's one character. Another would be a character that goes by the name of Kamina from Gurren Lagann, which is an anime that like my buddy Josh brought to the show, and it's one of my least favorite ones that we reviewed overall, but I really, really love the character, this particular character. He's kind of this like older brother, like kind of older brother sort of like type of character for the main character. And he's just constantly positive, but in a way that like he leads this character toward personal growth. And he's energetic, he's positive, he's always got a smile on his face. And I love that. I love positivity in my characters, rather than the doom and the gloom in my media. So I'd say those are two good examples. To throw a third real quick, Faye Valentine from Cowboy Bebop is really good. She's not my favorite from that whole show, but like she's written really well. Like she's this kind of badass. She's kind of this like the sex symbol of the anime, but she's more than that, right? Like she's sneaky. She has a really deep backstory, and then as you go along, you realize like again she's putting up a front to protect herself and keep herself like distanced to not get herself into any trouble. And just characters like that I love. I love characters with a lot of layers and depth.
Would you say that anime has a lot of that? Like a lot of the animes do try to have that backstory or that depth to them, or is it here and there that you can find a character that's like that?
I think they try. I think sometimes they succeed, sometimes they don't. You know, I think the most popular sort of like genre is the shonen genre, which is, you know, your Naruto's, your One Pieces, your, you know, things along those lines. And I think those sometimes can be a little less developed main character sort of thing.
That's kind of like that cookie cutter that you were saying.
Yeah, at least
like...
I think so. And maybe some people will disagree with me. But you know, when you really get into a lot, sometimes it's the side characters even that I seem to like more than the main characters, just because they really do more to like develop them. But yeah, I think generally a lot of anime will try to like add, especially more modern anime, try to add like a little more depth to their characters.
Yeah, real quick. So I'm also a big guy on like the score. The score needs to like really hit home for me. So if you had to pick one anime that like the soundtrack is just like out of this world, what's going in your number one spot?
Oh my god, man, I wrote down like 4 things, but I'll give you my number one. And I know I've said it a million times, and you were like, take a drink. He's mentioning Cowboy Bebop, but Cowboy Bebop has like one of the greatest soundtracks in anything I've ever experienced. Maybe short of like Final Fantasy games, like Final Fantasy 7 or Final Fantasy 10. Like the whole name of Cowboy Bebop, like it alludes to this idea of like jazz and blues and that style of music, and it is just all over. The theme song is a bop. The end theme is fantastic. There's one song near, I can't remember, I think it's episode 5, the Battle of Fallen Angels. And it adds so much weight and emotion to that episode, where you're just like, holy shit, I don't know if I can curse, but like holy crap, like what did I just watch? What did I just experience?
It sounds like Cowboy Bebop needs to be next in my queue.
I hope you like it.
As soon as I'm done with Dragon Ball, I think that's when I'm gonna go next.
I hope I'm not overselling it. I hope you guys really like it.
Yeah, we're gonna go in like, this is crap. This is awful. This is the worst thing I've ever seen. I guess so with anime, I feel like it's growing in popularity. Like I feel like more people are starting to learn about it a bit more. Where do you see like the future of anime going in terms of like trends that you're seeing with it and things like that?
That's a good question. So I think that I really see, honestly, like the streaming has really helped with the popularity of anime. You know, when I was in like high school or whatever, and I was watching anime, it was like this kind of secret thing that like, you know, my few friends and I that did watch anime, you know, we didn't really make open or part of our personality in any way. And like now there's like these huge conventions. You can stream anything at any time. Like before, when you would buy, like when you weren't bootlegging, which we won't do. So let me take that back.
Yeah, we don't do that.
we don't do that. Let's take that back. I'll rewind that statement. Before, when we were borrowing anime from our friends, we had to go and we'd buy a VHS tape, and it would be like $20, and you get 2 episodes for $20. And it's just like, I've still got some of my VHS collection, like down in my basement, that like, you know, episodes of like, there's like a 13 episode series of like Record of Lodoss War, and I think I spent like $120 to get like 13 episodes of a television show, and that's ridiculous. So I think the accessibility, I think the fact that like anime isn't seen as like an uncool thing anymore. I think it's seen as like a lot more mainstream, especially with like Miyazaki and the Studio Ghibli films. I think that just helped tremendously with the acceptance. You know, things like Spirited Away, things like Princess Mononoke or Ponyo or Totoro, like made it mainstream, made it okay to like absorb anime as a genre. So I really honestly just see it continuing to grow in popularity. I think you know, the one thing that I think I'm already kind of seeing is there's so much, there almost is an oversaturation right now, and anime has to like there's kind of a joke. We just did this on a recent episode where we did some trivia, and I asked my host, my co-host, I said, is this a real name of an anime or something that I just made up? Was the trivia game. And like some of those things are like 3-4 lines long because they have to like sell you right away because there's so much. Like this is exactly what the show is in the title, so you know what to expect. So I think that could be a problem. There's maybe a little too much. And
it's probably one of those stories. It's like, is it good versus bad? Like it's trying to pick through like, yeah, this is gonna be a great anime versus this one is, yeah, I shouldn't have watched this one.
That's the same story that I had with comic books. It's like back in the day, you know, everybody loves Marvel movies right now, but when I was in high school, there's no way I'm pulling out my Fantastic Four 288 and reading that in the lunchroom. You know what I mean? Like you're just you're not doing that, and like you like almost had to hide it, and like now everybody loves it. Well, everybody loved it, and now there's like this oversaturation of it, right? So it's almost like anime and comics are kind of like traveling down the same path, you know?
Unfortunately, it's one of those things. Like even with the movies, it's like, oh well, here's another one. We've talked about this on our show quite a bit. It's like, what are they going to release again? We're like, oh well, I gotta watch it because they released it, but it's like, is it actually good? So hopefully it doesn't turn into too much of that because I don't know. I think, and like David said, it's a really cool like media. It's very cool to appreciate on how much goes into anime, even though like we haven't watched the most. But it's one that I think, like you said, it's growing in popularity, and I think you'll see more and more people interested the more they learn about it, which is really cool.
It's definitely one of the most unique mediums that I can think of. I don't know if there's anything out there that's quite like it. And I know you said anime adjacent. But if you were to put anime and anime adjacent together into like a little, you know, it's a little subcategory,
umbrella term,
yeah, a little umbrella category. I don't think there's anything out there quite like it.
Any final thoughts on anime, Andy?
Man, I wrote down so many random anime and characters and things. Just go watch old anime. Like go watch old stuff. Like don't just look at the flashy new stuff. Although I will say, every once in a while, I'll usually, if I'm bored and I have some extra time, I will get on Crunchyroll and I'll just like skim through like the new stuff. And sometimes I'll find gems. Like I watched this show called Buddy Daddies, which sounds like it's a little salacious, but it's really not. It's about these two hitmen who end up they do a job, and in the job like they end up like with this young girl like is there as part of the job, and they kill, I think, the father. Like they're the protector of this girl, so they're like, what do we do with this girl? And then they unwittingly become like this girl's replacement parents, and it's hilarious. It's absolutely just funny, and you feel like it shouldn't work, but like it's just wild and weird. So like just watch a random one, you know, watch some old anime, see what works. Don't be afraid to ditch it if it's lame, because there's a million out there and you will find the one for you.
Now, it would be criminal to have you on this show if we didn't talk video games, because obviously that's one of our main things. And so let the listeners know, like, what games do you like to play? I know we've already talked about Pokemon. I know that's one of your main games.
I love Pokemon. Pokemon's one of my number one loves. I love Nintendo anything. I'm a Mario guy. I do like Zelda games. Really my favorite like series of all time are Final Fantasy, Pokemon, and I love Tekken. Tekken is fantastic. Tekken 8 just came out, and I am loving the heck out of that game. That game is stellar. It is probably the best Tekken game I've played since Tekken 3, and that is high praise.
And then I know that you do, like, I've seen that you go to the Pokemon tournaments. How have those been going?
Terribly. They've been going terribly. I'm so bad.
I should have brought it up.
No, it's okay. No, it's fun. I've gotten into competitive Pokemon over the last several years, and I am not good. I am not. I think the first one I went to, I did manage like 5 wins and 4 losses, which I thought was like huge. The last one I went to, though, I think I was 4 and 5. The Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are not great games. They are a necessary evil at this point. I've put like 300 hours into them just because I play the competitive scene. Not anything crazy, but like I will get on and I'll play the ladder. It's one of the only things I do competitively when it comes to video games. And but like it's sad when that game makes me miss Sword and Shield, which I think I put like 900 hours into, just playing competitive almost alone. So yeah, no, they're fun. If there's ever a live Pokemon event near enough to you, go check it out. Even if you just go in and look around, like they've got vendors, you can buy overpriced stuffed animals. Like I've paid far too much for Pokemon plushies.
Are there different tournaments that use different games for them? Like you said, Scarlet, or what was the other? It's been so long since I
Sword
played
and Shield,
the last
Scarlet and
Sword
Violet.
and Shield. That's the last one I played was Sword. So do they pick, like each tournament has a different like game of Pokemon?
Typically, it's what's currently being used, at least the ones sponsored by the Pokemon Company. And to keep it interesting and relevant, they constantly change like the actual rule set. So like the most current one, the second DLC came out a couple months back, and that opened up like 100 new Pokemon into it. And I'm just ready and scared for when they open up like the legendary Pokemon to be able to be used, because the game will no longer be fun when it's just like Kyogre running around, using water spout or whatever.
Okay. Do you have any more lined up that you're gonna go to?
I don't know. There's one coming up in Indianapolis that I'm thinking about.
Okay.
I don't know if I can make it work, but a lot of them have been like really far away, and
Gotcha.
I'm not gonna fly out for a Pokemon tournament.
What if you win the whole thing?
No, that's never gonna happen. I'm not Wolf Glick. I can't do these things.
Okay.
Did you get sucked into the 151 re-release on the cards?
Some.
Did you?
I bought some. Yeah,
I got roped in. I got
I had self-control. I did not collect 151, but did you get them
Oh
all?
yeah, no, I got roped in. I didn't get them all. I did not get them all. I got some good ones though, but it got way too expensive. I was at the point where it's like, so my one buddy kind of got me into it, and it was at the point where I'd be at Target and I'd be like, oh my God, they have 2 boxes, and I'd send him a picture real quick and be like, you want the other one? He'd be like, yes. Like we were into it super hard.
That's awesome.
No, I managed to not. The card game is really fun though. If you actually play the card game, it is really a good card game.
I got more into Yu-Gi-Oh card game in college actually, and they tried to get me into Pokemon, but I was like, so my best friend Drew and my other best friend Luke, they're like, Adam, buy Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I'm like, this sounds stupid. I don't want to do this. And then so we played for like 3 months, and I was getting really into it. I was buying cards left and right. They're like, okay, we're switching over to Pokemon. I was like, guys, I just spent $800 in college on Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Like, I can't go. And they had like stacks of Pokemon cards. Like, you should buy some. I was like, no, I'm sticking to Yu-Gi-Oh right now. You guys should have started with Pokemon if that's what you wanted me to do.
But before I was a teacher, I worked at a card shop for a few months, and I remember when I was learning the ropes, because I played Magic the Gathering, I played some Pokemon. I have a lot of Magic cards. It's a problem. Not as much as some of my friends, but and I remember the guy that ran the shop. He's like, "You're going to learn Yu-Gi-Oh," and I'm like, "But I don't know Yu-Gi-Oh." He's like, "That's what you're going to learn." And I was just relegated to the little kids coming up like, "I want white dragon eyes," and I'm like, "What are you talking about? I don't know what you mean."
When I first started, I was like, okay, I want the blue eyes white dragon. Like, that's the one I want. They're like, that one's like really not that great. And I was like, okay, what can I have then? So I made a dinosaur deck, and it's funny. It's actually sitting on my bookshelf behind me there.
Nice.
So, okay, we're gonna kind of finish it off here, Andy.
Okay.
We're gonna do 2 different we call them skits or bits or whatever you want to call it. And
Yes,
first off, you already said there's some Pokemon games that are not very good. So we're gonna have you blind rank Pokemon games.
Oh boy. Okay.
Are you ready for this?
Sure. Absolutely. Bring it on. I'm
And
probably
then
gonna have some controversial thoughts on these.
Oh,
Good.
get ready
Good.
for
That's what we
comments.
want.
Get ready for comments.
Bring it over to Tooning Japanese. We'll let you know.
Yeah, exactly. So, Andy from Tooning Japanese, we're gonna have you blind rank Pokemon games. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Bring it on.
All right, number 1 choice, Pokemon Black and White.
How many are you giving them?
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry,
how
I'm giving
many?
you 5. I'm
Okay,
gonna give you 5.
so I'm gonna rank him from 1 to 5.
Yep.
Oh man, blind. Okay, so unpopular opinion. I didn't like Black and White as much, even though the story was really good. I'm gonna put that at 4.
Oh,
4.
Oh, people are gonna
Oh,
hate
geez.
me. They're gonna hate me. They're gonna the Unova lovers are gonna come right after me.
That's what we want. Okay. Your second choice is Crystal.
Ooh, Crystal's good. Oh man, I'm worried about there should be some other good ones in there, so I'm gonna put Crystal at number 3.
Okay, safe bet. Safe bet. I like it. All right. Your third choice is X and Y.
Oh, ooh, okay. I actually really love X and Y, and that is a super unpopular opinion, but I'm worried you're going to throw like blue and yellow or gold and silver, so I'm going to put that at number 2.
Okay. Okay. Next is Sun and Moon.
Oh, that's 5.
Okay. Well, I think you're going to be happy with your number 1 choice, and that is Pokemon Red Blue. Red and
Yes,
Blue.
number 1, baby. Put it number 1.
I shouldn't have put that one at 5, but that's all right. So I think you're pretty proud of that list. Are you happy with it?
I'm actually okay with that. I think some people will disagree with me, but I am actually really happy with that list.
He didn't
Perfect,
He didn't
perfect.
dog me like he didn't dog you like he dogs me.
Yeah, I try to set Dave up for failure, but I think that's a solid list. It's
You got to be
solid
nice
list.
to your guests. That's a
Exactly.
podcasting 101 thing. Be nice
That
to
is
your
Right.
guests.
that is a
Right.
solid
Be
list.
mean to your co-host, but be nice to your guests. Exactly. So you can come
absolutely.
back and enjoy coming back. Okay, now are you ready to play?
Who's that Pokemon?
Yes, 100% yes.
Cool. Let's get the scare. Or so, let me share my screen here. Learn to talk a little bit. I started with some easy ones. I think you'll nail these right away, just because again we have to make you look good. So,
hope. We'll
Andy
see.
from Tooning Japanese podcast, name that Pokemon.
Ooh, this one's a tough one. I'm gonna say that's Charmander.
What? How'd you know?
Oh, I'm a genius.
Yeah. All right. Here we go. I have about 15 of these. So
Okay,
here,
all right.
here we go.
Just so you know, I thought about that for a second. I'm just throwing it out there. I thought about that one.
It's okay. That's all right.
All right. Next up.
Ooh, this one is a little tricky because there's 2 that are shaped very similar, but I'm gonna go with Gengar.
That is correct.
Hey.
I got this one wrong. I went the other way.
did. Yep.
You
There
went
was
Clefairy?
there was two
Or
there
Clefairy?
was two that look similarly close to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's a theory that the Gengar is the dead version of the other one.
Ah,
That's
that right?
crazy.
Yeah.
That's another one because we talked about Charmander when he died or his parent
Oh,
died. Which one was
Marowak.
that one?
Oh, Marowak, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so,
Marowak
like-
is wearing the skull of his mother.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. All right. Next.
Oh, that's Gigalith.
Wow. Look at you. Good job.
Nice.
He's a pro.
I
You
think
should have
that's-
made these harder.
I thought I did.
I think
was
that's a black
going
and
through
white
this.
one. That's a black and white Pokemon, I'm pretty sure, too. So
I should have
there
had
you
you do the number of the Pokemon.
go. Oh, no way. No way. I'm not that good.
Okay. Again, this is probably an easy one.
Which one is it? I think there's one spoon. Kadabra.
Boom. You got it.
Hey, all right. That's how you know. Nose pass.
Dang. Like I looked at some of these like, oh, I've never heard of this one. Great job.
Oh, Palisand? Or is it or is it Palisand or is there an evolution? I don't remember if there's an evolution. I'm gonna go with Palisand.
You got it right.
Okay. Nice.
Moving on. Another easy one.
Which one is it?
Ooh,
Poly
This is easy.
Wrath?
You got it.
Okay.
Woohoo.
Whoa, Buffet.
Dang.
I'm so excited right now. If he goes 100%, I'm gonna lose it.
I thought I'd pick some hard ones, but apparently not.
100%, 100%.
Okay. This one is this is Zacian.
You got it right.
All right.
Let's go,
Excellent.
bro.
Here we go. That's Beware.
I thought that one was pretty easy. He's just so cool.
I love Beware.
I
He's
like
Beware.
Yeah.
One of my first teams I made in Sword and Shield for competitive was all the bear Pokemon.
That's awesome. That's very cool. All right.
That's Rillaboom.
Yep. Dang.
Okay. Armor Rouge. I love that
Yeah,
one. One of the new
yeah.
ones from the new game. Actually, I love that design. It's really fantastic.
Yeah, he's really cool. That's why I picked. I was like, oh, that one looks cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chatot.
Yep.
What are we
There
at?
we go.
What are we
Wow.
at
He's got
right
the
now?
musical note.
What are we
We're
at?
on. We are number 14.
Oh my God, he's
Holy
got one
cow.
left.
All right.
Oh, sorry, you got two
Oh,
more.
two?
Okay.
You just completed 13.
Okay.
All right.
Octillery.
Yep.
Okay.
Wow. Last
right.
one.
Oh crap.
No.
Did I? No.
Hang on. Let me think. I can recognize them, but I'm trying to remember the name. It's not. Oh gosh, what is the name of this one? They just had the one version of them in the new game. Crud. I may
Want
have
a
to
hint?
bow. Yeah, it's one. Well, it's one of the. It's like with Cobalion and not Cobalion. Yeah. Give me a hint. Maybe it'll help.
Another word for steel, I guess. It's a metal.
Oh,
Like that's the first name. It's
really?
a metal.
It's
Yep.
a metal. Oh, I'm gonna be 14 and 15. I can't remember the name of this dude.
Iron Builder.
Iron Builder. Oh, it is the paradox form from the new game.
We were
Okay,
so
that one.
close. We were so
that is
close.
a tough one. Oh.
I should, what? We'll just skip it and say you like I only had 10. So good job, you got 10
Wow,
out
I
of
got
9. Wow, good job.
Yo,
Great job.
14
14 out of 15 is not bad.
14
No.
out of 15 is seriously impressive.
That's
great.
great.
Honestly, I could not remember that name anyway. Even if you'd show me the picture of him, I don't think I would have got that one.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think
I
so.
was trying to pick ones like, okay, I've never seen this one. I was trying to find some that had some weird shapes that may have thrown you off, but apparently, nope, you know your Pokemon. So
That
that's
one,
awesome.
that one's brand new and it's not in the meta, so I have no idea.
Gotcha.
If you just want some sample data, I usually go like 50% on these. So you crushed it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome,
You did
awesome.
awesome. Well, Andy, we appreciate you being on. Go ahead and tell the listeners where they can find you. Just tell the listeners about where we can find you.
So you can find Tooning Japanese. We'll start at tuningjapanese.com. And our socials, facebook.com/Tooning Japanese, at Tooning Japanese on, I guess, X. I don't like saying that, but you know what I mean, Twitter. So you can find us on like any most podcasting apps, I think. I don't know. Maybe we're not on some random one, but go check out. We've got 9 seasons worth of content, like 270 something episodes. We've been doing this for a long time, and hope that you enjoy it. You can find me. I'm at Lemon Nerd Boy on Twitter, and every once in a while I'm on Twitch. Not so much anymore. Haven't been on there a long time, but I'm also Lemon Nerd Boy on Twitch.
Just a huge thank you, man. It's been awesome having you on. 14 out of 15 is a new show record, and that's incredible. That is incredible. It's been absolutely awesome, dude. I learned so much from you. So thank you. And I'm definitely going to be checking out Cowboy Bebop. That is next on my queue.
Yep, I'm there with you, Dave. That's after Dragon Ball. Cowboy Bebop is right there with me too. But also the one. What was the assassin one again?
Buddy
Your
Daddies.
name? Oh, Bunny Daddies. And then Your Name is the other one that had me interested too. Like those are the 3 that kind of stuck out to me the most. But yeah, thanks again for being on the show, and it was an awesome time.
Yeah, guys, we're gonna drop all the links down. Tuning Japanese down below. Links will be everywhere. Please go check them out. Show some love. We super appreciate you having you on, man. Thank you so much.
Peace out, nerds.